there's something most people don't talk about enough. And it has to do with what's sitting right there on your dinner plate tonight. Every single day, millions of Americans over the age of 60 sit down to eat foods they've trusted their whole lives. Foods that feel familiar, foods that feel completely safe. And yet, quietly, without any obvious warning signs, some of those very foods may be placing a serious burden on one of the most important organs in your entire body, your kidneys. Now here's what makes this so concerning. It's not that these foods are exotic or unusual. It's the opposite, actually. These are everyday foods. Foods deeply woven into the American way of eating. Foods most people never think twice about. And that's exactly the problem. According to the National Kidney Foundation, chronic kidney disease affects an estimated 37 million Americans right now, and a striking number of those people are adults over the age of 60. What the research makes very clear is this. Kidney function naturally slows down as we age. After 60, your kidneys are already working with less reserve than they had 20 or 30 years ago. They filter more slowly, they recover more gradually, and they become significantly more sensitive to the food surrounding them day after day, year after year. Research highlighted through the National Institutes of Health further confirms that dietary habits are among the most changeable risk factors connected to kidney health decline in older adults. In plain English, what you eat consistently, over time, genuinely matters. It can either protect your kidneys or quietly wear them down. In this video, we're going to walk through 5 common foods that research suggests may be placing unnecessary stress on your kidneys, particularly if you're over the age of 60. We'll look at what each food actually is, what it may be doing inside your body, why older adults are especially vulnerable, and what current medical understanding says about the connection. This isn't about scaring you, not at all. It's about giving you clear, honest information, because understanding what's happening inside your body is the first step toward making choices that genuinely support your long-term health. Before we go any further, here's a quick but important note. Everything shared in this video is purely for educational purposes. It's not intended to replace your personal medical advice. Every person's health situation is different, and what applies to one person may not apply to another. If you have kidney concerns, existing health conditions, or questions about your diet, please talk to your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider. They are the right person to guide your specific care, always. Now, if you find this kind of honest, research-based health content helpful, go ahead and give this video a like. It helps other people who genuinely need this information find it. And if you'd like to stay informed with future videos just like this one, subscribing is the simplest way to do that. Alright, let's get into it. Number 1 on our list, processed and deli meats. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Turkey slices? Ham? Those seem pretty harmless. And honestly, that's exactly why this one makes the list. Because these foods feel so normal, so practical. A quick turkey sandwich for lunch, a few slices of ham, some packaged sausage at breakfast. For decades, these have been staples in American households. But here's the thing. When you look closely at what's actually inside them, the picture becomes a lot more complicated, especially for kidneys that are already working harder with age. Let me explain. Processed meats, and that includes bologna, salami, hot dogs, bacon, and most packaged deli slices, are extraordinarily high in sodium. One single serving of many popular deli meats can contain anywhere from 400 to over 1,000 milligrams of sodium. And most people aren't stopping at just one serving. They're building sandwiches, adding sides, going back for more, all while the sodium quietly stacks up throughout the day. Here's why that matters so deeply for your kidneys. Your kidneys are responsible for filtering and regulating your body's fluid and electrolyte balance. That includes managing sodium levels in your blood. When sodium intake is consistently high, your kidneys have to work significantly harder to process and remove that excess. Over time, elevated sodium intake is closely associated with increased blood pressure, and high blood pressure is one of the leading causes of kidney damage in older adults. The two are directly connected. The American Heart Association has long identified high sodium consumption as a key driver of hypertension, and research from the National Kidney Foundation consistently reinforces that uncontrolled blood pressure is one of the most damaging forces a kidney can face over time. But here's something most people don't realize. Sodium isn't the only concern with processed meats. These foods are also high in animal protein, and they contain preservatives called phosphate additives. These are used to extend shelf life and improve texture. According to research discussed through the National Institutes of Health, phosphate additives in processed foods are absorbed by the body at a significantly higher rate than the natural phosphorus found in whole foods. For healthy kidneys, managing phosphorus is just a routine task. But for aging kidneys, or kidneys already showing early signs of reduced function, elevated phosphorus levels in the blood can actually speed up the progression of kidney disease and contribute to serious complications involving your bones and your heart. Here's the bottom line on this one. After 60, your kidneys simply don't have the same filtering efficiency they once did. What your body could once handle without much consequence now requires more effort, more time, and more strain. Processed meats eaten regularly over months and years may be contributing to that strain in ways that are nearly impossible to notice until the damage has already progressed. Now, this doesn't mean one occasional slice of turkey is going to cause a crisis. Context always matters. But the pattern of daily or near-daily processed meat consumption is one that nutritionists, kidney specialists, and health researchers consistently flag as a genuine risk factor, especially for adults in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. What comes next is something that may surprise you even more, because it's often marketed as a perfectly healthy choice. Number 2. Dark-colored sodas and beverages containing phosphoric acid. Most people already know that soda isn't exactly a health drink. But the specific concern for kidney health goes much deeper than sugar or calories. And it's connected to one particular ingredient that almost never gets talked about openly. That ingredient is phosphoric acid. Phosphoric acid is found primarily in dark colas, your classic cola drinks, both regular and diet versions. It's part of what gives these beverages that sharp, slightly tangy bite. It's also a form of phosphorus, and the body absorbs it very efficiently. As we just discussed, the kidneys are responsible for keeping phosphorus levels in the blood properly balanced. When those levels stay consistently elevated, the consequences over time can be significant. Research published through the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology has examined the relationship between cola consumption and kidney function. The findings suggest that regularly drinking cola beverages, particularly 2 or more servings a day, may be associated with an increased risk of chronic kidney disease. Researchers noted connections to something called proteinuria, which is the presence of protein in the urine. And that's a recognized early signal that the kidneys may not be filtering as effectively as they should. Then there's the sugar side of things. Regular sodas flood the bloodstream with large amounts of added sugar very quickly. Over time, those repeated blood sugar spikes contribute to insulin's resistance, and sustained high blood sugar is a well-established driver of diabetic nephropathy. That's a form of kidney damage caused directly by uncontrolled diabetes. The American Diabetes Association has consistently highlighted that poor blood sugar management is among the most significant threats to long-term kidney health, particularly in older adults who may already have pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes without fully knowing it. Now, you might be wondering, what about diet sodas? Here's the thing. Diet sodas are often assumed to be the safer choice, but the phosphoric acid content is still there. And emerging research has raised honest questions about whether the artificial sweeteners used in diet beverages may carry their own metabolic considerations. This area of science is still evolving, and more long-term research is needed before firm conclusions can be drawn. Let me share a realistic example that puts this into perspective. Think about someone like Gerald, a 68-year-old retired postal worker from Ohio. Gerald had been drinking 2 cans of cola every single afternoon for over 30 years. He didn't smoke, He walked regularly. He genuinely felt reasonably healthy. Then, at a routine checkup, his doctor noticed slightly elevated creatinine levels. That's a marker used to assess how well the kidneys are filtering waste from the blood. Gerald was genuinely surprised. No symptoms, no pain, no obvious warning signs at all. His doctor went through several lifestyle factors, and Gerald's daily soda habit was one of the very first things flagged for discussion. Gerald's story isn't unusual. It's actually remarkably common, because kidney function can decline quietly, and the daily habits contributing to that decline often feel completely harmless in the moment. For older adults who love a cold drink with meals, water remains the most kidney-friendly choice available. Herbal teas, infused water, and other low-phosphorus, low-sugar alternatives are absolutely worth exploring. The key takeaway here is simple. What feels like a small, harmless daily habit can become a cumulative burden on organs that are already working with reduced capacity. But if that one surprised you, the next item on this list truly catches people off guard, because it's something that's often considered a health food. Number 3. Excessive protein from red meat. Now, I want to be very careful and very clear here, because this point requires some important nuance. Protein is not the enemy. Please hear that. Protein is essential, especially for older adults. Adequate protein intake is genuinely critical for maintaining muscle mass, supporting your immune system, and sustaining your overall strength as your body ages. The concern here is not protein itself. The concern is consistently excessive amounts of animal protein, particularly from red meat, in the context of kidneys that are already managing a heavier workload than they used to. Here's what actually happens inside your body when you eat red meat. During digestion, protein gets broken down into amino acids, and this metabolic process generates waste products, most notably urea and creatinine. These must be filtered and removed by your kidneys. The more protein consumed, especially animal-based protein from beef, pork, and lamb, the greater the filtration demand placed on your kidneys. This increased demand raises what's known as glomerular filtration pressure. Think of it as the internal pressure building up inside the tiny filtering units of your kidneys, called glomeruli. Over time, sustained elevation of that pressure has been associated with accelerated wear on kidney tissue. Research from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health has examined dietary protein sources and their relationship to kidney function in older populations. The findings suggest that diets consistently high in red meat protein may be associated with a faster rate of kidney function decline compared to diets that include more plant-based protein sources. The research doesn't say eliminate red meat entirely, but it does indicate that both the source and the quantity of protein matter, particularly after 60, when your filtration capacity is already naturally reduced. There's also an important connection to uric acid worth knowing about. Red meat is high in compounds called purines, which break down into uric acid during digestion. Most people associate uric acid buildup with gout, that painful joint condition, but elevated uric acid has also been linked to kidney stone formation and to broader kidney injury over time. Your kidneys must continuously manage uric acid levels, and a diet consistently heavy in red meat keeps that burden elevated day after day. Now here's the nuance that really matters. A grilled steak once or twice a week, within an otherwise balanced, plant-forward diet, is a very different picture from red meat, appearing at nearly every single meal. For older adults genuinely concerned about kidney health, nephrologists and registered dietitians often recommend shifting some protein intake toward plant-based sources. Things like beans, lentils, tofu, eggs, and fish. These tend to generate less metabolic waste and place a gentler demand on the kidneys during filtration. The shift doesn't have to be dramatic. I want you to know that. Even modest, consistent adjustments made over time can make a meaningful difference in how hard your kidneys are required to work. And for kidneys already navigating the natural changes that come with aging, that reduction in demand can matter far more than most people ever realize. What follows is a category that almost nobody connects to kidney health, and that's exactly what makes it so critical to talk about. Number 4. Over-the-counter pain medications, specifically NSAIDs. Now, I know this one isn't technically a food, but it absolutely belongs in this conversation because of how commonly it's consumed and how consistently it's overlooked as a kidney health risk. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, known as NSAIDs, include widely used medications like ibuprofen, naproxen sodium, and aspirin in higher doses. These don't require a prescription. They sit in medicine cabinets all across America. And for many older adults managing joint pain, arthritis, back discomfort, or general muscle soreness, they've quietly become a near-daily habit, as routine as any food or drink consumed throughout the day. Here's the problem. NSAIDs work by blocking certain enzymes in the body that trigger inflammation. But here's what most people don't know. Those same enzymes also play a key role in regulating blood flow to your kidneys. When NSAID use is frequent and sustained, it can reduce blood flow to the kidneys, and that interferes directly with their ability to filter efficiently. According to research highlighted through the Mayo Clinic and further supported by findings from the National Kidney Foundation, regular long-term use of NSAIDs has been associated with acute kidney injury, and with prolonged use, may contribute to the development or worsening of chronic kidney disease. For adults over 60, the risk is notably higher. Aging kidneys already have reduced blood flow compared to younger kidneys. Adding a medication that further restricts that flow day after day, week after week, compounds a vulnerability that's already present. And I completely understand why people reach for these medications. The pain is real. The discomfort is genuine. The relief feels necessary. But the long-term cost to kidney function is a dimension of this equation that deserves far more attention than it typically receives. You're not alone if you've been relying on these medications to get through your days. Millions of older Americans are in exactly the same situation. The Arthritis Foundation, which represents one of the most common reasons older adults reach for NSAIDs, has published guidance strongly encouraging individuals to discuss NSAID use openly with their physicians, particularly if use is frequent, and to explore alternative pain management strategies where appropriate. Acetaminophen, when used correctly and within recommended doses, is generally considered less harmful to the kidneys, though it carries its own considerations at high doses related to liver health. The broader point here is important. No pain reliever should become a thoughtless daily habit without your doctor's awareness and guidance. If you're managing chronic pain and regularly relying on over-the-counter medications just to get through your days, that conversation with your doctor isn't optional. It's genuinely important. There may be safer alternatives, complementary approaches, or prescription options that can support your comfort, without placing the same level of stress on aging kidneys. And now we've reached the final one on this list. In many ways, it may be the most widespread of all, because it hides in places most people would never think to look. Number 5. High-sodium processed and packaged foods. We touched on sodium when we talked about processed meats, but this point deserves its own dedicated attention, because sodium in the American diet extends far beyond the salt shaker sitting on your table or the obviously salty snacks you might consciously avoid. It's embedded in soups, canned vegetables, frozen meals, condiments, bread, breakfast cereals, cheese, salad dressings, and dozens of other packaged foods that people eat every single day without a second thought about the sodium quietly building up inside. Here's what the guidelines actually say. The American Heart Association recommends that adults consume no more than 20,300 milligrams of sodium per day, and ideally closer to 1,500 milligrams for those managing high blood pressure. Yet research consistently shows that the average American consumes well above that range, and much of that excess isn't coming from home cooking. It's coming from packaged and processed convenience foods, where sodium is used as a preservative, a flavor enhancer, and a shelf life extender. For older adults, the stakes around sodium are particularly high. As we've already discussed, elevated sodium intake is a primary driver of high blood pressure. But the kidney connection goes even further than that. Your kidneys regulate the balance of sodium and water in your body to maintain stable blood pressure and fluid levels. When sodium intake is persistently high, your kidneys must constantly work to filter and remove that excess, This ongoing, elevated workload accelerates the loss of kidney function over time. Research from the National Institutes of Health examining dietary sodium and kidney outcomes has found that high sodium diets are associated with faster progression of kidney function decline in older adults, particularly those who already have hypertension or early-stage kidney disease. And here's the part that makes this so difficult to catch. The damage it contributes to doesn't announce itself. A person eating a high-sodium diet doesn't necessarily feel it happening. There might be some water retention, some mild puffiness, perhaps occasional headaches. But the slow internal pressure building on the kidneys and cardiovascular system isn't visible, and it isn't painful in the early stages. By the time symptoms of kidney decline become noticeable, meaningful damage has often already occurred. Let me share another example that really brings this home. Think about someone like Dorothy, a 72-year-old retired school teacher from Georgia. Dorothy ate what she genuinely considered a reasonable, sensible diet. She cooked at home most nights. She rarely added salt at the table. She tried to make thoughtful choices, but she relied heavily on canned soups for lunch. She used a popular bottled pasta sauce several nights a week. She kept packaged crackers and cheese for snacking. And she seasoned her cooking with a well-known all-purpose seasoning blend that she'd used for years. What Dorothy didn't realize was that each of those items carried several hundred milligrams of sodium, and when added up across a full day, her sodium intake was consistently pushing well past 3,000 milligrams. Not because she was being careless, but because the sodium was quietly embedded in foods that didn't taste particularly salty and didn't carry any obvious warning. Dorothy's story reflects the experience of countless older Americans who are genuinely trying to eat well, but are unknowingly consuming far more sodium than their aging kidneys can comfortably manage over time. You're not alone if this sounds familiar. So what can you actually do about it? Reading nutrition labels carefully is a great starting point. Choosing low sodium or no salt added versions of your packaged staples makes a real difference. Cooking with herbs and natural spices instead of salt-heavy seasoning blends is worth trying. And being mindful of condiment portions, those add up faster than most people expect. These aren't dramatic lifestyle overhauls. They're small, consistent adjustments that, over time, can genuinely reduce the workload placed on kidneys that deserve every bit of support they can get. Let's bring everything together. Because here's the truth that ties all 5 of these together. Your kidneys don't give loud early warnings. They filter quietly, they compensate quietly, and they decline quietly, often for years before any obvious symptoms ever appear. That silence is precisely what makes your dietary habits so important to pay attention to right now, rather than after the damage has been done. What research consistently shows, across institutions like the National Kidney Foundation, the NIH, Harvard Medical School, and the Mayo Clinic, is that the dietary patterns people establish in their 60s and continue into their 70s and beyond have a direct, measurable impact on how well the kidneys continue to function. Processed meats with their heavy sodium and phosphate load, dark colas with their phosphoric acid and sugar content, excessive red meat driving up filtration pressure and uric acid, over-the-counter pain medications taken too casually and too often, and the silent, pervasive sodium embedded in the packaged convenience foods filling so many American pantries. None of these are inevitable threats. They're knowable, and what's knowable can be addressed thoughtfully, carefully, with the right guidance. That guidance starts with your doctor. If you haven't had a kidney function panel recently, which includes simple blood and urine tests checking creatinine levels, glomerular filtration rate, and protein in the urine, please ask about it at your next visit. These tests are straightforward, and they can reveal kidney changes that would otherwise go completely unnoticed. Early awareness creates options, and options genuinely matter. Your kidneys have been working for you, without a single complaint, every hour of every day for 6 decades or more. The very least they deserve is your attention. This information is shared purely for educational purposes and is not a substitute for personalized medical advice. Please consult your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider for guidance specific to your health, your history, and your individual needs. Thanks for watching.